In 2004, I was 15. I was studying for my mock GCSEs, but actually playing Championship Manager and desperately chasing Maxim Tsigalko, listening to 50 Cent and desperately failing at most things in life. Ethan Nwaneri, on the other hand, has made his debut for Arsenal, is getting hype from everywhere, but unfortunately is also being moaned about by tragic men on national radio. Who the fuck is Jason Cundy anyway? Just 16 more games, Ethan, and you'll have overtaken him. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod, guys. As always, my name is Ruairi, and I am joined by my good friend this week,
Adam. Hey, Rory. How are you doing, mate?
I am very good. I'm very good. I've had a week of trying not to get too wound up by TalkShite. So on our account, just to give you a warning, I have muted them and blocked them. So now we just will not see them because I've finally had enough. I'm sick of falling into their trap. Although this episode, we are going to fall into their trap as a warning, listeners.
We certainly will. But on that point that you just introed, I have to also pull out this tweet, which was about San Marino, which rocks up at the same year. So this was San Marino are still winless since beating Liechtenstein in April 2004. This was when Twitter did not exist. George W. Bush was still serving his first term as US president, and Nokia was still selling the 3310. Memories, mate. Memories.
I feel like I'm back there already. I feel like I'm back there. I've not achieved much else, and San Marino haven't achieved much else. It kind of gives me a sense of calm. It's
definitely
nice.
Achievement as well, right? At the same time.
Also, at that game last night, which was San Marino Seychelles, right? 0-0 for anybody who didn't catch the classic. One, to start with, what a random friendly. It feels like Seychelles have travelled a long way there for a friendly.
Yes.
I hope like FIFA paid for the travel or something, right? That can't be a cheap flight.
It probably didn't, to be fair. But again, it must be like FIFA ranking points. That's what they were speculating on, right? For both sides. But it's mesmeric, just the fact that it ended up 0-0. I bet both sides were thinking this is an easy win for both sides, and it didn't transpire. So
finally, we can get that W. Finally, we can get it. And for long-term listeners of the pod, one of our very first guests, Paul Watson, author of Pompeii. Yes, I do remember the title of the book. He was actually at the game, ended up sat next to the ex-San Marino manager and coach. He said he was live tweeting it basically and said he wanted to be there to witness San Marino's first win in, like you said, such a long time. But it was not to be. I apologize, Paul. Sorry about that. Sorry, San Marinians, and any Seychelles fans who happened to make that ridiculous trip, if there were any. I'd hate to go that far for a 0-0. But yeah. International football does throw up these delights every so often, and we are going to cover it in this week's show. But I need to ask you, Adam, how are you? I don't know if I asked you yet.
No, but yeah, thank you, Rory. Keeping very well. Long week. I think people do forget that when it's bank holiday, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an easy week. It just means more work is condensed to lower time span. So, unfortunately, I've had to do a course today. I've got it again tomorrow, which is terrible. I did talk to you offline about it. I'm not going to bore the listener, but all I have to say, MicroStrategy, definitely not porn. That's the difference. It's just you can't get excited about it. That's all. And
if you do, you need to seek help.
You do. You do. But let's talk about football, Rory. I want to get off the topic of just work and just talk about the endless football, right?
I think we can do it. It's time to get up in the blimp and go for the Euro review.
Let's do it.
And here we are. It is time for the Euro review. And despite league football kind of taking a hiatus, it does feel strange that it's gone already. There is still football to talk about. There is the Nations League coming up. This pod does get excited about international football, so we will definitely get there. We are definitely going to be talking all things England, Ireland, Poland, Italy,
Ireland,
Scotland, Kazakhstan, any others. I don't know. We'll see where we end up, but we will be talking about lots of international football. But first, we are going to talk about the managerial merry-go-round, maybe potential. Someone's building a merry-go-round in Italy, and there may be some managers thrown on it soon. But one who's managed to jump off it and into a job is the new Monza manager, Raffaele Palladino, who kicked off his career in fantastic style by beating Juventus 1-0, securing their first win of the season.
Absolutely brilliant.
And oh my God, how delicious was it, Adam?
It was brilliant. I couldn't believe the scoreline when it actually came up on my screen. I was like, what is going on? Like, I have to take note of this. I have to start watching this now. Like, I just thought, this is an easy game for Juventus regardless, because I heard about the fact that obviously Raffaele just came into the role. I just thought, it's Allegri. He'll get a boring 1-0. Here we go again. But yeah, just incredible. When you saw the highlights like I did, just incredible performance by Monza. And the fact was they really did deserve the win. Ultimately, Juventus were really poor. Di Maria getting sent off in the first half. I mean, that really does start a few questions about him and his contribution. A lot of speculation in the week saying that he's got half his head in Argentina, half his head in Turin. So that kind of paints the story about the morale of that squad. Interestingly, though, I don't know if you saw this, but Galliani was taking credit for the win at Monza against Juventus. He claimed that he wrote something in the dressing room, which was around the lines of, it took 110 years for Monza to get promoted to Serie A. We're not going to use 1 year to get ourselves back down the leagues. And he apparently, it's that inspirational quote that got Monza the win. But enough.
The real hero of the piece. The real hero of the piece. It's not like Galliani to make it all about himself. It's not like him at all. But for Monza, you're right. It was an incredible performance. Git Kiaya getting the goal. He's actually been a pretty good player for Monza. He's got 22 goals now for them in about 60 games, I think. Ex-Lech Poznan man was there for a very, very long time. Again, did quite a good job there. And it was good for him it was beautiful, like the way he celebrated the goal, how much he meant to the Monza fans. And I think to get that, like, if you've not lived in Italy or you've not followed Italian football, to understand how big a scalp Juventus is in this country, you can't underestimate how much it means for teams to beat them, because they dominate and have dominated for so long. When a team gets promoted and then beats Juventus, it is just monumental. I remember Empoli did it last year. Salernitana came incredibly close this year, right? It does just mean more, and you can see that the Monza fans were delighted. I'm sure Berlusconi enjoyed it extra, getting one over that lot and Agnelli. But with Palladino coming into a job, it does feel like Allegri could be coming out of a job. Now, obviously, the rumors are that they can't afford it. You mentioned Di Maria, how his head isn't quite there but we've seen him previously, like, publicly basically questioning what he's doing. Like, so he's at this point, it's almost confirmed that he's lost authority in the changing room, and they're not listening to him. They don't understand, or they don't support what he's doing. The only thing that seems to be keeping him in a job is the financially Juventus cannot afford to sack him. I think ultimately they'll get to the point where they have to. What they're going to do is they're going to wait until after the international break for some reason. They're going to give him 2 or 3 more games. It won't improve. And then they would have missed this opportunity to bring in a new coach. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, the names that are being linked to it. Now, you brought up the first name who you saw being linked.
Paolo Montero, who's obviously the ex-Juventus centre-back. By all means, the only reason why he's being linked is because he's a favourite of Agnelli. So previously, when Agnelli was watching Juventus in his youth, apparently, yes, Paolo Montero was his favourite player, and that's the reason why he's being linked.
He was a beast, absolute animal, Montero.
But
he was one of the dirtiest players I've ever seen. He was like the original Pepe. Pepe grew up with posters of Montero on his wall, potentially. Like, he loved an elbow in the temple, and like a real dirty player. I know just whenever I talk to like Tommy or the likes about Montero, they just get angry. Like, the amount of fouls, just a dirty, aggressive, angry player. Also a very good defender. You can't take that away from him. He was a very good defender.
Of course.
But yeah, if his team play how he was, Juventus could be, well, I don't know, a very agricultural, let's say. But I also feel like he may be getting linked just because it's the cheap option. As you said, he's already at Juventus, right?
Yeah.
All they have to do is promote him. We all know that companies, when you promote from within, you don't pay as much, right? So
of course.
I think it could be the cheaper option for them. But the other name that is obviously being linked to it, and I'm sorry, Spurs fans, but no matter how much Conte celebrates on the line and gives it the big un, he will leave you in a second.
Yes, he will. He's already doing laps. He's just getting warmed up right now. He's ready to just jump and go to Turin. And he'd be absolutely incredible for them, because I think he would. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a lot of rumours around the intensity of training right now as well. The fact that I think De Ligt, when he moved to Bayern, said his first session was the hardest he's ever had in about 2 years. And Julian Nagelsmann said, that's only pre-season. That isn't proper training for us. It's like, wow, this is really brutal. And I think there's been a few players that have since joined Juventus and kind of questions maybe Allegri's kind of style, and the fact of he's just a dinosaur. He's very old school in his manners, and maybe he just hasn't brought that kind of intensity that Juventus need. The other point that was made brilliantly this week was about the fact that Allegri has changed his tactics on numerous occasions this season, to the fact of that the players don't actually know what's the best system. They constantly are trying to change and adapt to what Allegri is telling them. And by all accounts, all he does, and I don't know if you saw the comments after the Monza game, but he basically says he blamed the players and said, I can't do anything if the players are doing it on the pitch, which basically means he's doing fuck all when it comes to training, and he's expecting the players to just turn up and do
just the goods, figure it out,
which is just not the way, unfortunately. It's like we've been kind of maybe to an extent critical about Arteta and being too like dynamic in terms of his training sessions, but actually, you've got the exact opposite with Allegri. So like you, I can't believe they are going to wait this long, because if they're going to give it 2 or 3 weeks, they could be out of the Champions League. That is quite a big deal. And then you've got the league. I did predict at the beginning of the season, if they're not in the top 4 by Christmas, then they should make the mark and just make a move with him. But realistically, I'm going to put this to you, Rory. Who do you think they should go for? Because I know we're kind of expecting Conte, but I can't see Juventus really. We're saying that they can't afford Allegri's kind of wages. Can they realistically go and pay like Conte out of his contract?
The only blessing is that Conte signed a short-term contract at Spurs.
There is
now,
that,
I think he only signed an 18-month contract, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't signed a renewal. I'm almost certain he hasn't signed a new contract. So I think he actually doesn't have that long left on his contract. And when he joined Tottenham, I remember saying, it's weird that he's only signing an 18-month contract. It feels like he's definitely not in this for the long haul.
He's got a cycle, right?
Yeah, it's like, I think the bags haven't necessarily been unpacked in North London. Like, I think he's still using that
rented pad at Stamford Bridge or something like that, right?
He's still got the removals company on speed dial. Like, I think I would be surprised if Juventus didn't at least try and approach him. Like, I think he is going to be their number one, and he would be the guy who would get them back into where they want to be, right? He would get them back up there. He would probably not with that squad or not the first season, but within 2 seasons, 3 seasons, Juventus would be back under him. If they're not able to get him, or if he decides to stay at Spurs, I think the managers around the league, I think they kind of missed out on Tudor, who is ex-Juve player, right? He's now gone to Marseille, doing an incredible job. Did an amazing job at Hellas. They missed out on him. They missed out on Italiano. I know he's not doing that great, and Fiorentina are struggling at the beginning of this year, but he's a very exciting coach, and they're a good team. De Zerbi will get onto, like they've lost out on him, so I feel like there aren't many options around within Serie A and within the Italian league where I'd go, oh, that's an obvious choice. Even managers like Gasperini aren't going to work at Juve.
No, I can't see that.
I think you can't go back to Sarri. You're not going to get Mourinho.
I'm just going to mention 3 and I'll get your thoughts. So obviously Tuchel's available, but the other 2 that comes to mind is Zidane. I appreciate he's probably waiting for either the PSG job or France, and then Pochettino. Pochettino wants a project. I feel this has got the hallmarks of something that whereby he might be able to go in, steady the ship, get them at least playing attractive football, and it might take time. But we've talked about Monza, Ravello, who obviously is a Juve player, played against them, had a fantastic match. We've got Moretti, who seems to be a phenomenally kind of like clone of Pirlo almost. You've got an exciting squad that's kind of brewing underneath the crap that is by the side. So if you strip all the players that unfortunately Allegri has decided to spend a fortune on, if you take that out, I think there is a core of a good squad. It just needs nurturing. And I think someone like Pochettino, where his reputation is damaged, they could easily give him like an 18-month contract. I think he'd probably do a good job. But again, I don't know.
I think that's a very good shout. I think it's an incredible shout. Like what Pochettino did do really well at Spurs was nurture all those young players and turn them into a very, very good team, right? So I think that's a very good shout. I think would they be sensible enough to go for Pochettino? I don't know. Zidane, maybe you could reel on the, you used to play for us kind of thing. But there is a reason why Zidane has not taken a job post Real Madrid. I don't know what it is, but there is a reason why he's not accepted any other jobs. So I don't expect him to really be in a managerial job anytime soon. I think Pochettino would be a very good shout. Tuchel also. Although, so there's a few options.
Yeah,
but
just
it
outside
will
of
be
Serie A, right?
It will be Conte. Juve really like Italian managers. They really like Italian managers. They don't often go, off the top of my head, they don't often go for foreign
I can't remember the last foreign manager they had.
So Sarri Italian, Pirlo Italian, Allegri Italian,
Capello,
Conte Italian, Trapattoni, Ancelotti, Capello. These have all managed Juve, right? I don't know how many foreign managers. I'm going to have a quick Google, but I can't remember the last foreign manager. So I think they're going to stick to Italian and try and go for Conte. But we shall see. One of the managers. Are we ready to move on? I think we're ready to move on.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
One of the managers they did miss out on is Graham Souness's number one love, De Zerbi. And I am delighted that he's going to be in the Premier League. I honestly could not be happier for the guy. His Sassuolo team, I'm going to go into them. I'm going to get your thoughts first, and we'll kind of go into his Sassuolo team a bit. But I'm just super excited to see him in the league. I think he could not be a more perfect fit for Brighton. It's just got the hallmarks of like, this is going to be entertaining. How did you feel when you saw the De Zerbi news come through?
I was like, we did speculate on the candidates the previous episode, and I'm delighted for him just because he's back in a role. And I think he's been very underrated to this stage. But now I really am excited about what he could do for that Brighton squad. And I think he even has reminisced about the fact that he's looking forward to the challenge. I think he's probably an advanced kind of move on Potter, like in the sense that I think he'll bring more dynamism to that squad as well, because I think he's more adaptable. He'll do exactly what Potter does in the sense of when it comes to different games, he'll change the formation as well. So he's not always reliant on one style fits all. For example, he will change dependent on who he plays. I'm just really excited. I think Italian football is really excited about him as well, because I think everyone has been craving for him to go back to Italy since that Shakhtar Donetsk period. And I think Graham Souness doesn't know what he's talking about when he's just comparing him to that one previous kind of rate. And he did mention it. He kind of went, 9 seasons and he's achieved X amount. And it's just like, let's remind ourselves, you've got a legacy as a football thug and you were only at good clubs. But let's remind ourselves of that fraud that you let in at Southampton. Oh yeah, George Weah's cousin. Oh yeah, that makes you a brilliant coach, right? And manager. Just baffling, mate. But you must be excited as well.
There was also people who brought up the fact that Graham Souness managed like 9 teams within 10 years as well or something. So when he was like, because De Zerbi's done 7 teams in 9 years, right? And he was like, why aren't people keeping hold of him? Well, if De Zerbi loved Shakhtar enough, he would have just stopped Russia invading if he really wanted to stay. Like, Graham, just Google something for like, just take 2 seconds. Google is your friend, and just take a couple minutes, read, and go, oh, that's why that. Okay, right. It's really not difficult. If I can do it, you can do it, Graham. Trust me. But I'm super excited about De Zerbi. To talk about his tactics quickly, you're right. He switches from like a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-3, depending on who the opposition are. And what I really like about him is like his team plays super wide. So like he got the best out of Jeremy Boga. We've not seen him be anywhere near the player since De Zerbi left him. He plays super out wide, but he doesn't cross all the time. He doesn't cross at all. What they do is a super intricate, short passing, quick, dynamic football. I think his second season in Serie A, Sassuolo were the team with the most short passes on average per game in the league.
Incredible.
And if you look at the players that he brought through, all these players that have come through Sassuolo, you're looking at Locatelli, Berardi, Boga, Caputo, Fratesi. You've got Obiang, you've got Kyriakopoulos, who's still playing there. Raspadori, Scamacca, Toljan, like all these players that are now Serie A regulars, and a lot of them have moved on to like bigger and better things, bigger clubs. They've all been coached by him, and they all swear about how good he is. Especially like Locatelli has not been the same since he left Sassuolo either. Like obviously he's joined a Juventus that we've talked about enough, but he's not been the same since. Borga's not been the same since. Caputo hasn't been the same since. And I think like the players, the way he develops them, gets them into a system, and the system that he plays, he's got Brighton written all over him. Like they are going to bring through these young players. That's what they do. And his history again at Sassuolo is buying low, selling high. Like I think most of the players he sells for at least double the amount he signed them for. Like I think Politano, Sensi, all these players he made big money on. And that's Brighton's that's
their philosophy.
Right? That is what they do.
Tony Bloom is just rubbing his hands like this, basically.
And this is like for a team that already know how to play fast, intricate football, entertaining football. He's just going to come in, put his own spin on it. I think Caicedo is going to absolutely thrive under him because he's a midfielder that can drop deep, and he needs his midfielders in both boxes. He's
also got Billy Gilmore as well, someone that's gone down on his luck, and I think he'll get the best out of him. We know he can get the best out of these defenders as well. So I'm just excited. I'm literally really excited about the prospects, and the fact that he's got players like Jakub Moda who will come back from injury and probably benefit from being with De Zerbi as well. Just brilliant times.
I think the only thing, and this is where I'm like, but it's always the problem with Brighton, is the striker, right? And it's always like you've not got that striker. So with Sassuolo, they had Berardi and they had Caputo. Now Caputo got 21 goals in one season for him, right? Berardi is his highest goal scorer under De Zerbi, like 44 goals in 99 games or something, 60 goals in 99 games. So he's had a prolific striker. At Brighton, they don't have that. They've got Danny Welbeck, and we know we all love Danny Welbeck, right? But he's not prolific. And I do wonder, either he's going to get the best out of Danny Welbeck and we're going to see the best that we've ever seen in his career, or he's going to have to go out and get a proper striker. Now, does this mean that in January, finally, Berardi gets his big move and comes to Brighton? I think we would all love it.
I think he's a homeboy. I think he's a homeboy. He's going to stay in Italy. He doesn't like it. But on that side note, I think he might tap into Donetsk and get someone from there potentially. And there's to be fair, when you talked about the short passing intricacies, you just need someone on the end of it. So you need someone that's a bit wily around the box and just hanging around there. There's plenty of players that he could tap into potentially.
Trossard making those runs. Trossard and Gross making those runs. And I think even with his wing backs as well, he's got great wing backs at that club. Even Tariq Lamptey and the players like the Estupinian, right?
Yeah.
Like his wing backs don't get super far forward, but they are really key to the game. They just sit in that gap between midfield and defense and just kind of help the team
Just
press
move it
forward,
along,
but still keep fairly sensible. The problem is Sassuolo always conceded goals. So there will be goals. Their defense was never good. Now you can say that's because they had Consigli in goal and they've just they've refused to improve on him. But Brighton will now concede a lot of goals. But the good thing is they will score a lot of goals. Like they're going to be even more the team to watch. I think this is it's such a great like coup for the Premier League in terms of like a young, exciting manager. And I think people are going to be really, really surprised by him. Like people like Graham Souness who haven't Googled it. I think they will be really surprised. And like quickly on the Shakhtar thing, even at Shakhtar, he actually did a very good job. Now you can argue about the competitiveness of the Ukrainian league, but it's a better standard than you think it is.
Oh yeah.
He managed 30 games. He won 20, drew 5, lost 5, and managed to win the Ukrainian Super Cup, beating Dynamo Kiev, their biggest rivals, 3-0 in the final, right? So I think even within that 30 games and all the turmoil that was kicking off around at that time, he did a fantastic job. I think the club definitely would have liked him to stay. He definitely would have liked to stay, but it, of course, just wasn't possible. And I think it's something that weirdly is going to have like a black mark on his career. Like people might just forget why exactly it did fall apart.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, and it was a really brave move for him to make at the time. I remember when he went, I was like, wow, that is a fair play.
That's a random one,
Like,
because especially with turmoil, like you said, they were playing in Kharkiv for most of that season as well. That's what people won't see on the record books necessarily. Donetsk weren't able to play at home with their fans, and also a lot of their players were kind of saying, well, I want to go home. I don't want to be in this shithole anymore, basically. So,
but it's also a club that shares the same philosophy as Sassuolo and Brighton. They bring in young players, they develop them and sell high. So it shows that he's someone who knows what he wants to do. He knows what he's good at. And like, he loves what he does. Like, if you know what I mean, he has gone purposely for that club because they follow the same philosophy.
It seems like,
Juve at that time.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's about the philosophies. If you haven't got the philosophies, he's not going to be like enticed to go to those clubs. And that's possibly why, even if Zerbi was around and Allegri has been moved on, I don't think he'd go to Juventus because the philosophy isn't there. And he'd know himself that it would take time to actually repair that. So, and that's time you will not get with Juve fans, Juventus in general, and the board. So that's probably a blessing in disguise.
So, in short, Brighton fans can be very excited, and if we've jinxed him, we massively apologise. But I think you've done very, very well. So we can't wait to see you, Roberto. I'm super excited, and he's got a few weeks to get the squad ready. He's got a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
We shall see how it goes. Not bad, good.
Yes.
So TalkSport have had a hell of a week, Adam. They've had a hell of a week. They got it wrong about Zerbi. They've got it terribly wrong about Zerbi, and then I'm going to get your thoughts on it before I explode on this. What happened with Ethan Nwaneri? Just what did you see happen there?
I saw an unnecessary point about a player who's 15 years old, got prospects, he's got potential, and he didn't even play the whole game. And they made a whole song and dance about this player like being disrespectful somehow by the fact that he's being promoted to play for the Arsenal first team. It's just like completely bonkers, because I said it at the time when it was brought up in a tweet. I was like, no one kind of made a fuss when the likes of Jack Wilshere was on the scene. No one made a fuss about Wayne Rooney when he came onto the scene. We've had even other players since then, for example, come onto the scene as 16 and 17 years old. We've seen the likes of Jude Bellingham, for example, and I appreciate he started his career with Birmingham City, who found themselves in circumstances which meant they had to be forced to play the likes of Jude Bellingham. But to the point, still, promoting someone that young into a squad is not that easy. I mean, just to resonate with Wycombe Wanderers for a minute, we had Jordan Ibe. He was 14 years old when he broke into the squad. And for that level, obviously, being it was League One, people kind of said, oh, he must be really good. He must be really good to be playing at your level. And he was, because Liverpool then snapped him up within a few games. But that goes to prove the point that if you're good enough, you'll be in the first team. Yeah. And that's no disrespect to the players that are there. That's no disrespect to those that are trying to progress. It's just to show them that if you work hard, then you can achieve that goal. Yeah. And
there's a pathway. There's a
pathway. And I did see, I suppose, leading up to this event, there's a great documentary about Crystal Palace and their youth team. And you see,
I need to watch it. I need to watch it.
Definitely recommend it. It does wind me up about the parents, but I'll park that to the side just for this point. They do promote a player. He's about 17, 18 years old. He then plays in a FA Cup match, I think, or Carling Cup equivalent. Plays against Stoke City, essentially, and has a good game. Patrick Vieira then takes him off with 30 minutes to go or something like that. But he has a fantastic game. But he then goes and plays under 17s match, I think it is, thereafter. But he doesn't kind of crack. He's like absolutely buzzing by that experience. Yeah. He loves it. And even the players around him was like, what was it like? Like, you know, they were just really gunning for him. And I suspect that's the same with this guy. I'm sure he's gone back. His Arsenal teammates that are playing in that same age group are like, what was it like? What was it like? You know, I'm just happy for the kids. You know, I think that's beautiful to see. And then you had to have fucking TalkSport ruin like what is just supposed to be a really proud moment for him and his family by saying he shouldn't be playing and it's disrespectful. I mean, let's get you to boil now. I've got the kettle ready. So
it's now like just change the narrative completely. You're right. The story now isn't him, like, if the noise around it isn't like, oh, congratulations, this is an amazing thing. It's your fault. You're disrespectful. You should never have been there. You don't deserve it. Like, this country is fantastic at breaking young talent. It's just incredible at how efficient we are at it. I think, look, I think there's many reasons why TalkSport do what they do. Obviously, one of them is to get people to call in and get angry, like we're going to get angry now. But I do think there are certain clubs that they hit and they know it's going to get it's going to get clicks. Arsenal's definitely one of them. Man United's another one, and they just produce stories about Arsenal United, because they know that gets the biggest numbers. I think part of it is, and I know we've not achieved anything yet, they're worried that the banter era is over at Arsenal. I think they're worried that actually the funny stories and the laughing at us might actually not be lasting that much longer. Yeah. Touch wood, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. And I think also it was like a quiet week and they had to say something. I think for Nwaneri, it's an incredible achievement. There was an amazing video that Stephen Cole, legend follower, shared with us on Twitter about the 9-year-old kids at the Arsenal Academy watching him come on, and they were all going mad, and they were like, because they personally know him, and you're like, that's what it's about. And then Arsenal have produced this documentary called Inside Hale End, and it's like a series. And then you see that Granit Xhaka has been getting his coaching badges, coaching those kids, and he's seen this Nwaneri as everyone's like, it's a name I'd heard before he came. Like, I knew a little bit about him. People have been talking about him. But Granit Xhaka saw him and was like, no, this guy's good. Like, and you see that there's a process there, and that there's like the whole thing at Arsenal quite clearly now is to produce our own players, right? Yeah. We are very much investing into Hale End. It's one of the best academies in the country. It's only going to get better. And I think it's very clear what the club is trying to do. And I think this is just something that we were 3-0 up. He's a player that's got a lot of promise. Yes, his contract, he does need to sign a professional contract. Chelsea, City, Liverpool, United, apparently Real Madrid, they're all looking at him, right? Arteta has tried to be like, look, you will get games. You will, we will give you the chance. We'll give you the chance now. And I think it's part of this process that Arteta tells us to trust. And I'm completely trusting it. I could not, honestly, I was watching the game and I was like, bring him on. Like, I just want to see him come on. I just want to see it happen. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And like, I don't get where the outrage came from, apart from TalkSport being TalkSport, because like you said, in the past, we've had Harvey Elliott come on for Fulham at 16. That was applauded. Wayne Rooney comes on and scores against Arsenal. That was applauded. And then you think, okay, well, maybe is it that they think the player's not good enough? And then you see some of the players, and I'm not saying these players weren't good enough, but they didn't go on to have Premier League careers, right? So there was players like Jose Baxter is one of the players who's in the top 5 youngest players ever. He came on at 16 for Everton against Blackburn in 2008. He only ever made 3 Premier League appearances. There was Izzy Brown, who came on for West Brom versus Wigan.
Yeah.
He was 16. Matthew Briggs, he came on for Fulham.
Yeah.
He was 16. And then you think, okay, well, then the issue can't be that you're afraid there's a lack of ability, because those players didn't go on to have sparkling Premier League careers. So what is the issue? I honestly cannot fathom it. And I think for players, the types of players that are on that bloody station, I've said it on Twitter today. I didn't even know Jason Cundy was a footballer. I honestly had, and I know some obscure footballers. I spent a lot of time on Championship Manager and reading fucking Wikipedia pages. I had no recollection of this guy as a player. I assumed he was ex-rugby, because they have cricket players on there sometimes, didn't they?
They've got a mixture. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he's just a rugby guy who likes football, but doesn't actually know anything about football. No, he's an ex-footballer who knows nothing about football. Yeah. Danny Mills is still pissed off that Thierry Henry mugged him off every time he played him. He fucking despises Arsenal. Whenever they have him talk about Arsenal, I just instantly just scroll past it. I'm like, that guy
of course.
He despises Arsenal. It is ridiculous. Just the people they have on there, just a bit of nuance, guys. Just a bit of nuance. Anything, a bit of research, a bit of even the line about, does Zerbi know the Premier League? Well, no English managers ever won the fucking Premier League. So foreign managers obviously know it better than our own.
Yeah. I think 4 Italians have won the Premier League, by the way. Graham Souness.
Yeah. Four. And it's just... I just found it really unnecessary, and it was really a horrible thing to do to a 15-year-old who made his debut for his boyhood club. And then when he goes into school on Tuesday, because Monday he was off, right?
Yeah,
when he goes into school on Tuesday, suddenly the conversation might not be, congratulations, that's incredible. The conversation is, oh, did you hear what this Muppet said about you on national radio?
Exactly.
It just seemed like a massive pile-on for no reason. But I'm going to... end it there, because it just really, really, really made me angry. And I hope to see Nwaneri start every fucking game now, because I just want to see how angry we can make TalkSport. So it is time to go to the Nations League and international football. I think we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll do that, right?
Good stuff. Let's do it.
Let's do it. And here we go. It's everybody's favorite competition. It's the Nations League. Just when you think we've had too much football, UEFA cram and kick some more football down our throats and force these players to travel halfway around the world with a World Cup coming up in 2 months. Very, very sensible planning. But here we are. I still love international football. I'm still going to get excited about it. I'm still going to try and watch some of it. Let's start with... Should we start with Anglo or Italian? Which side are we going to start with?
Let's do a bit of both, right? Let's do a bit of both.
We're in the same group.
We're in the same group.
We can do both, right?
Yeah,
we can do both. Tomorrow night, or tonight, as you are listening, listeners, England kick off against Italy in the San Siro. I can't believe I'm not going. Milan is going to be full of drunken Englishmen, I imagine, tomorrow on my way back from work. But they do take each other on. The last time it was that terrible 0-0. Two kind of rotated teams. A game that honestly had completely slipped from my memory. But I'm going to let you should we go through the England squad first and talk about what happened there?
I suppose so. Yeah, I think the main highlight here is Ivan Toney. So the fact that he's been called up, and I think it'll be fascinating to see how I feel he'll get a chance. It just feels like he will get a chance. And something that was shared on Dara McAntony's podcast. He's the Peterborough chairman, for those that don't know. He says he will do exactly to the letter what his coach will ask him. And this is probably the reason why Southgate has decided to pick him, because he can do his defensive duties. He can also attack the box. And as we know from this season, he can score from pretty much any angle he wants to. Yeah. And he's pretty cool on the penalty spot as well. So he'd be brilliant to bring off the bench when it comes to those situations in the World Cup as well, because he's as cool as a cucumber. I can't remember seeing him ever miss a penalty. That says a lot. So for someone that has had to work himself up the leagues and is getting his rewards now. Yeah, let's hope he gets a chance at the San Siro, of all places. I mean,
of all places, man. Can you imagine your international debut at San Siro?
It'll be an incredible night for him. But then, Rory, what do we expect this squad to look like? Because I don't know about you. It feels like it's going to be a safe squad. It doesn't feel like he's going to experiment much.
I think with us being, I know, like, we can discuss how much it actually means, but I think if England were to get relegated from League A into League B, it would actually be a big deal, even though people kind of dismiss the Nations League. I think TalkSport would definitely be talking about it if England got relegated. I think it would actually be a big thing. So I think for these games, Gareth Southgate does just kind of need to get the W's, because as I said, we are bottom on 2 points, Italy ahead of us on 3. So if we lose against Italy, I think we're relegated. So it is like weirdly a kind of big game, I suppose. Obviously, England drawing 2 and losing 2 so far. Germany and Hungary top of the group, which is just insanity. But with the England squad, I think, Gareth Southgate's got to be safe, which begs the question. And maybe this is why he didn't make any changes, but calling up Luke Shaw, calling up Harry Maguire, calling up Mason Mount, calling up Calvin Phillips, Jared Bowen.
He's now out of the squad, isn't he? So he called up Jordan Henderson.
Injured. Yeah.
So he's called up Jordan Henderson. So he's got another safe pair of hands, so to speak. But
I think all those players I've listed, including Jared Bowen, are not players that have been in form. They're not players that have necessarily played.
No.
They've not. It's just very much, this is what I know, this is what I'll stick to. And that's what we expect from Gareth Southgate at this point now. But I think I know as an Arsenal fan, it's going to be obvious for me to say this, but how Ben White isn't in this squad fucking blows my mind. Like, he's one, I know we've got a wealth of right backs, but he's a very fucking good centre back as well. He's one of the most underrated defenders in the Premier League because he had one bad game against Brentford, and that's all people remember him for. He's an incredibly good defender. He should be in this squad. He should be ahead of Harry Maguire without a doubt.
Yeah,
like that guy's season has been as bad as a season could be. Like there's parts of this squad that just confuse me. But now, like I said, we know that Gareth Southgate doesn't go by form. He goes by players that he knows are going to stick to a system. So we'll see. Maybe he'll get it right. But what did you think when you saw some of those players included?
I kind of switched off. I to be honest, I've kind of accepted that Southgate is going to play it safe. He's going to go by tried and tested. He probably made his kind of claim by saying, look, I've tried to experiment with this squad. And his kind of claim to doing that is just by calling up these players and not playing them. Ultimately, I mean, we saw it with Tammy Abraham during the summer. For the life of me, we've got a lad called Tomori who plays for AC Milan. He's a good defender. Again, he's not anywhere near that squad at the moment. I'm just baffled. I am really baffled because the problem is, it seems to be when he turns up for these competitions, they'll play it really safe, not the most attractive of football, but it will do the job. And I think ultimately it's all about a results-based business, isn't it, when it comes to these kind of tournaments. So Southgate, I think this is going to be his last tournament, dare I say. I think he's got to a point where he's done as much as he can with this squad as well. They need something fresh. But yeah, I think this could end up as a draw. And that's based on the fact that Italy are very much in the same position. I mean, Rory, we'll speculate about it in a minute, but when I saw Gabbiadini being called up, and this is probably one of the worst Italian strikers they could have called up because he's been pretty much injury prone for Sampdoria. I think he's only scored 2 goals this season, to the top of my knowledge, and he got called up ahead of certain other players, and it was baffling, absolutely baffling. But again, unfortunately, Italy will be without Verratti as well for this match. So
they've had to. It looks like they've called up Fratese, right? They've brought him in to replace him, I think.
Which is a nice addition, I have to say.
Another Sassuolo player right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Italy squad's kind of interesting. He's given a few chances to a few different players. So he's called up Provedel and Vicario. So Provedel from Lazio, Vicario from Empoli as a kind of goalkeeper, kind of just see what they're about. 2 very good keepers, I think. Vicario's unlucky that he's at Empoli, but he's actually a very good keeper. The players that kind of caught my eye, I was like, almost had to check who they were. Zerbi, who's made a few appearances this season. He's only 23 years old. There's Cancellieri, who's on loan from Lazio at Hellas. You might remember he scored an absolute banger against Empoli last season. He's got 7 caps and 2 goals for the under-21s team. There's Gatti, the defender for Juve, who's played twice this year. He's 24 years old. Mazzocchi, the right-back from Salernitana, have a player in the Azzurri. It's incredible. He's having a good season at right-back, though. Provedel and Vicario, like I said. And the player who arguably was the only bright spark of Italy's last international window, which was Gnonto, who's now at Leeds. He is incredibly exciting, that guy. He scored 2 goals in 2 games, I want to say, in the last break, or maybe a few breaks ago. But very, very exciting winger / striker. Killed it out in Switzerland. Now at Leeds. If he gets playing under Jesse Marsch, he will be amazing, by the way. But I think him getting called up again is very good. But it's a bit of a strange Italy squad. Like you said, Gabbiadini. What do you...
there's no words. Let's just move on. Let's move on. Because
if you look at the other strikers, you've got... Now, we give him a lot of stick. Immobile, but he's... Okay, for Italy, he's terrible, but he's a good striker. Politano, Raspadori, Scamacca, and you're going to play fucking Gabbiadini. It makes 0 sense. In midfield, Pobega could be quite exciting, but yeah, it's not a fantastic Italy team. But I think what we're seeing is, we've said in the past that Italy need kind of fresh impetus and fresh ideas, fresh players in the team. The whole thing kind of expired after the Euros, so I think this is possibly Mancini trying to do that and trying to be like, right, let's get some fresh ideas, some fresh energy in it and see what we can do. So that kind of brings the group, really. England, of course, facing Italy, as we said. Elsewhere, we've got Germany taking on Hungary, and then England take on Germany, and Italy take on Hungary. It's kind of a close group. It would be fantastic. I know Hungary has all its issues, but it would be fantastic to see the football team get to like the semi-finals of the Nations League. That would be an incredible story, right?
It'd be absolutely beautiful. And the potential teams that they could play, I mean, it's going to get harder. Let's put it that way. So we've got Netherlands and potentially Belgium. We've also got maybe Spain or Portugal. And then potentially we're talking about Denmark and Croatia, because Group 1 in the League A, I can't believe I'm saying League A, but anyway, it sounds amateurish. But yeah, in this particular group, we've got France, bottom of the group. Ruairi, I mean, fascinating, isn't it? Because this is the build up to the World Cup. They're not playing necessarily bad, but they haven't been doing very well in terms of getting results. They've lost at home to the likes of Denmark and Croatia. And I don't know, what do you make of this France squad? Because everyone keeps on hyping this squad up and saying they've got the potentials of winning this World Cup. But based on this form alone, it doesn't feel like they're going to do it at the World Cup, because we know what happens with a French squad when they have a meltdown. They really go to town, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do love it. And we've now got Paul Pogba tied up in whatever he's tied up in.
Which doctors?
Witch doctors and Mbappe, and it does feel like the French meltdown to match all French meltdowns. But in all seriousness, they have one saving grace, which is they have the best centre-back in world football in William Saliba. So they will be fine. They will be absolutely fine. No, I think, Deschamps, is he kind of running out of time? I know he won the World Cup, but
he's a bit like Southgate.
He deserves another chance.
He's
right?
just like Southgate. He plays it safe.
Yeah,
he goes for the same players. I mean, we've been talking about Maignan and how Magic Mike has been doing it for Milan, but he can't get in the squad because Hugo Lloris is the captain. Yeah. You've got a few kind of candidates like that, like Pavard, and I know he's had a better season this season than last for Bayern Munich and for the French squad. But again, he's one of those that a lot of French commentators have said he's not necessarily the best out there. Again, midfield, I feel like that's a bit disjointed at times. Pogba being one of the reasons, but even if you take him away,
aging Kante,
I mean, you've got that, and then up top you've got the Griezmann situation where he can't play consistently or can't get enough of game time at the moment with Atletico Madrid. So that means Giroud, or does it mean Mbappe, or does it
Well,
mean...
Benzema's still there, right? He's got called back into the fold, right?
They've got a lot of players, right? But let's remind ourselves at the Euros what they did as well, right? They struggled. On paper, they should have been the team that went to the final, right? But for whatever reason, internally, I think there were still fractions, and that was quite clearly seen by the fact that Benzema was included for this one. So I like Benzema. I think he's a great player, but again, he hasn't had a fantastic start, and I think he's been very unlucky with his injuries. So maybe for the French squad, that might be a good thing to have right now. On the other side of things, Denmark look really good. They're always a workmanlike team. But they've got a really good coach. I'm surprised this coach hasn't been snapped up by a club, to be honest. Again, I think he'll do a fascinating job for someone in Europe. And I'm just saying someone in Europe because I don't necessarily think he should just come to the Premier League. I think he seems like a Bundesliga style manager. He feels like that. He's got vibes like that.
Feel like that.
Croatia again, doing quite well. And Arnautovic, he's in form like we know at Bologna. Could he be
still top scorer in Serie A off the top of my head?
At the moment, as it currently stands, So again, that group is so fascinating, and just I think, and I don't know about you, Roy, but these set of games feel like preparation for the World Cup. It doesn't feel like the concentration
they're
is
very
necessarily
much
about this
warm-ups, aren't they?
And that's even the same with my team, Poland. It's a bit of a weird situation because we're in a very hard group where we've got the likes of Netherlands, Belgium, we've got Wales as well. Belgium and Netherlands have run away with it. As it currently stands, it's 1-0 to Netherlands against Poland. Poland, Michniewicz, the coach at the moment, he's kind of said openly that he's only going to take players that are playing games. So the likes of Shukovsky, for example, who's currently on the bench at Fiorentina, he said he's worried about him and his potential inclusions, which is a surprise because a lot of Polish fans rate him. They'd prefer him to be in the squad. Milik's got game time at Juventus, which he was very happy about because he said if he was at Marseille, he was worried about not including him. Piontek's obviously starting to get form for Salernitana. And this could be Lewandowski's last tournament, potentially. He could retire after this tournament. So, again, this could be a massive tournament for Poland in the sense of I'm not expecting much because every time I hype up this squad, we never deliver. So I'm just going to set my expectations really low and just say we'll be lucky to get out of the group stage. But our group isn't particularly hard because we've got Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and I've forgotten the other team's name now off the top of my head. But
well, there's two teams could be better.
On paper, it feels like we could do well. I think it's Argentina. There you go. So we're probably losing against Argentina. So, on paper, we'll probably end up last in that group. We'll probably draw with Saudi Arabia or something like that. Stupid.
Somehow. I was just looking through the squad, and my favourite, Simon Szymanski, is not in the squad. I fucking love that guy. He's not in the squad.
He's injured. He got injured for Feyenoord, unfortunately. So he was going to be included. But the Polish national team, they've got this fascinating vlog that they do is on Łącze Nas Piłka even. So they do vlogs about the squads and you get the whole insights, them in the changing rooms, in the hotel rooms. What was fascinating was seeing the Italian players come to the, obviously, the camp and Zielinski was asking Piontek about the Juventus match. He said, "What happened? How did you concede so quickly?" And he's just like, the team, we're flagging basically. So it was hilarious to see that. Zalewski was interesting to see there as well. And then you saw Lewandowski kind of talking about how to kick a football, which was, Lewandowski typical things. So it was fascinating, but Poland,
love that.
All I can say is we'll be lucky to get out of this group at this moment in time. I think we probably do enough, but we've got a tough game. I think it's on Sunday against Wales in Wales. Oof. We did beat them in the first leg, or the first game, should I say, in Poland. So, it could be a tough one. I thought you can just get a draw. I think we've done enough. But as it currently stands, Belgium are beating Wales. So it looks like, regardless of the results, I think Wales are out of this group as well. They're going to be relegated. So,
well, I did love De Bruyne's comments this week of "I'm bored of playing Wales" because it feels like Belgium and Wales play each other every single week. It is mental. They never ever stop playing each other. We're going to quickly just cover a few more countries. I'm going to go for this one, and very quickly, Ireland. The squad, it's looking a little bit healthier. We're going to very quickly go through it. So players like Omabamidele, the centre-back for Norwich, is back in the squad. O'Dowda's back up front. He's having an okay season, 2 goals, 2 assists in 8 games for Cardiff. Ogbene, love that guy. Just the happiest guy ever. Got a really great record for Ireland. He's got 5 goals in 11 games for Rotherham so far this season. He's back in the squad as well. And the legend that is Robbie Brady is back after 18 months of injury. He is back in the Ireland squad. So the squad's looking a little bit healthier, but we do have to play Scotland. In Ireland, though, last time we beat them 3-0, which was absolutely came from nowhere. Michael Obafemi, Banger, Brown, and Parrott with the goals. Then we're up against Armenia. We lost 1-0 last time. I think it would be massive to get 2 wins. I think we could get 2 wins there, and it would mean that Ireland wouldn't be relegated. I would quite like Ireland. I feel like League B, as much as tradition exists in the Nations League, is kind of where Ireland belong. So I think I would quite like them to stay where they are. So yeah, Ireland taking on Scotland and taking on Armenia this weekend. That is on Saturday and Monday, I want to say. So the last game or last team that we're going to talk about is my old home. I was only there for a year, but I absolutely loved it. It made a huge imprint on me. It is Kazakhstan. Now, I know you're only thinking of Borat, guys. Stop thinking about Borat. There's more to Kazakhstan than that, kind of. But they are currently, they've won 4 and drawn 1. They're currently top of the group on 13 points. The closest team is Slovakia on 6. So this is a group of Kazakhstan, Slovakia, Azerbaijan, and Belarus. Now, I know they're not footballing giants, but compared to Kazakhstan, I would arguably say Slovakia should be better than them.
Yeah.
I would arguably say Azerbaijan and Belarus should be better than them. I feel like Kazakhstan are massively overachieving. It is incredible to see. When I was there, I was lucky enough to watch some football there. I think the quality is better than you would anticipate. Saw some very good players. They've got a player who plays for Zenit St. Petersburg, Alip, the centre-back, and a name I cannot pronounce, Shutdinedyov. I want to say he plays for CSKA.
Sounds like a Russian.
Yes, just make Russian noises. He plays for CSKA in Moscow. So they've got a few decent players doing really well. They will be in League B next year. So I could get the dream tie of Ireland against Kazakhstan. I could get it. It could happen. Who knows? But listeners, that is us for this week. I think we've covered everything. Yeah. It feels like we did an all right job. Do let us know. For now, I don't know how to end this part. For now, we're going to leave you with a pretty big interview. And we didn't even talk about it at the beginning of the show, but I'm super excited for you to listen to this interview. This is just me with the ex-Crewe Alexandra manager, Gibraltar international, David Artell. It was a fascinating chat about not just Crewe Alex, but we talked about his career within football, his international career, the problems he faced at Crewe Alexandra, how it feels to run a club basically on your own, his philosophy in football. We discussed it all. He was an incredibly nice bloke, was super generous with his time. Thank you, David. And listeners, enjoy.
So, Ruairi, we were blessed to hear about David Artell and his career, as well as all the managerial bits as well. I loved a little bit about Wycombe Wanderers as well. I love that kind of reference. So I did listen to that as well. That was fascinating. But what was the main things that you took out of that interview? Because it sounded like honesty was like the biggest thing that I came across from that interview itself.
Yeah, I very much felt like whatever question I answered, he was going to answer, and it was exactly what he thought. He definitely did not pull any punches about Crewe Alex, and I'm kind of glad that he didn't. We know the difficulties that were going on around that club at the time and the people, and I think it was really good of him to be willing to talk about it and be willing to say, look, I wasn't helped as much as I should have done. I do feel like I was screwed over a little bit. And I just really appreciate that he was able to talk about it, because I felt like going into that interview, I knew I had to address it. I didn't want, because I support Crewe Alex, I didn't want to do the interview and then just gloss over it and people be like, oh, he's not talking about it because he's a Crewe Alex fan. But I realized how serious it is. I'm glad that David Artell was one to talk about it. But beyond that, just hearing about how he really thinks about the game, and he really, really values the team spirit and getting the right characters and getting that unit together. And I think one thing that I remember from that Crewe team is that they just were such a good team that he got promoted with a really good youth players. And I think he was just a really, really nice bloke. I really enjoyed that interview. And fascinating to hear someone who played for Gibraltar and played against Lewandowski.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also, on that point that you made about Crewe, I love the fact that he mentioned that, the main press were trying to catch him. It felt like they were trying to catch him out with whatever he said. So the fact that he didn't have any PR managers also being that level, I mean, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. But yes, we are at the end of the show, Rory. We are at the end of the show.
I think that's it. So thank you for sticking with us, guys. We will be back next week to talk Nations League nonsense and whatever happens. In the meantime, please do follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Like us on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe
TikTok
to
as
us.
well.
I'm running out of things. TikTok, we are kind of on TikTok. LinkedIn, everywhere. Wherever you look, we are there, listeners. So for now, we're going to leave you alone, and we're going to leave you with our quote to end the show. And it can only be from one man, the great man himself, David Artell, when he said, I could work in a chicken factory. There's only 92 of these jobs in the country, and I'm lucky enough to have one. So yes, it's incessant and demanding, but I could have my hand up a chicken's bum. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next week.
Take care, guys.